Are you struggling to sell your work or to find an audience for your work? Is your art not being taken serious at all by art galleries or the art world? Or are you simply struggling to create good art that you yourself likes in the first place? In today's video, we're going to talk about 4 very common mistakes why your art is bad and also how to fix them. Let's get started. When it comes to making a career as an artist, it all starts with good art. Whereas there are many authors, speakers, historians, or even YouTubers here stating that the art doesn't really matter in the art world and that it's all about who you know and not what you create. Well, this is wrong. Yes, it is important to have a solid network, and the better your network is, the better your art can prosper. However, first there needs to be art that is good. Art that will be taken seriously and that will be enjoyed by collectors all across the world. Art that can have a natural demand, that when it's being put in the right environment, in the right context, in the right place with the right people, that it will thrive. This is something many artists and art enthusiasts struggle with because art is indeed very subjective. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. However, in many other industries where there is also this notion of subjectivity when it comes to the quality of a certain design, this is most often accepted, whereas in the art world, people are a little bit more reluctant to accept this reality. However, in the art world, when it comes to good taste, and especially the taste of art professionals, people who have been in the business for years and years and working on a professional level, consuming the best art day in, day out, for some reason it is very hard to believe that their taste is any good or that there is something as good art in general. The first reason why your art isn't any good or is bad is having the wrong inspiration. It all starts with inspiration. This is kind of the first premise. With the wrong inspiration, you can start to create the wrong type of art. Especially due to social media and especially due to how algorithms work. For instance, here on YouTube or on Instagram, the art that is being shown to you is based on audience retention and normally also on what your current interests are. When you're starting out as an artist or simply starting out as an art enthusiast, your taste of art is still in its infancy and it kind of needs to develop and be nurtured by consuming high-end art. It needs to be refined and see the subtle, interesting things about great art, and it can often take some time before this frame of reference is being built in order to appreciate the more refined artwork. So at first we're predominantly occupied or interested in the visual spectacle where there isn't much beyond the surface, and with social media we're kind of being drawn into this rabbit hole of seeing the art we initially liked instead of developing and nurturing our frame of reference further. And most often we're kind of seeing art that does really well on those platforms, art that is being created by people who are very good at creating content and not necessarily when it comes to creating good art. Back in the day, for our inspiration, we bought art books, we went to art museums to see the great artists of history, or we went to the top-notch art galleries to see art hot off the press and have our finger at the pulse of the contemporary art world, where it is kind of all filtered by these art professionals who have a good and refined taste. And I know perhaps you're going to state this is gatekeeping and thanks to social media we can break away. However, we're kind of being drawn into this rabbit hole of suggested videos, suggested content without being able to learn from those masters. In a day and age where there is so much art, it really needs to be filtered if you're not able to filter it yourself yet. So therefore, the best fix here is to really learn from the masters, as we have said in earlier videos. A great way to do this is, for instance, to go to the top art galleries in the art world and go through their portfolio of represented artists. Here we're not imposing their opinion or their taste on art to you. You can simply look for artists that you genuinely like, and you can be sure of it that everything they do has been approved by the more seasoned art collectors and seasoned art critics. So it is still what you like. and you're learning from someone who is actually being able to become successful with that type of art. So there is already this validation, instead of learning from someone who perhaps has a lot of followers, but not necessarily has art that is suited to have a successful career as an artist. This advice can sometimes be controversial, so in the first place, do whatever you like. However, if you want to learn the subtleties of art that is good or art that can be successful in the art world, this is a very important piece of advice. Moving on is using too predictable or especially too convenient material attributes. Art has become incredibly easy to do and incredibly accessible with paint ready to use, straight out of the tube, pre-stretched canvases, etc, etc. However, the learning thread here is that we all start to do the same things and we all start to use the same materials. So we end up creating the same type of art. I believe 99% of the abstract painters out there use acrylic paint on a pre-stretched canvas. There is even this kind of flex on social media platforms, especially with the Instagram Reels, where they show how they pull out the pre-stretched canvas out of the plastic because it's, in their opinion, looks kind of professional. However, actually it is not. This is how most hobby artists would approach selecting their material attributes. And we also have this learning thread that it will kind of feel stock. It looks very stock, very predictable, it's mass-produced. So to create art that is genuine, it's much better to move away from those very convenient materials and to find your own. Think out of the box and kind of assemble our own formula of material attributes. And by doing so, you'll stand out immediately from the 95% of artists who go to the art supply store or who order their supplies online. Even more, this is the starting point of finding your voice as well as an artist, finding your recognizability and consistency. For instance, there are so many artists who have found this personal formula of material attributes. Think of Claire Tabourat, who painted on rugs, or Remy Eisberger, who painted on velvet, hence the paint reacting in an entirely different manner. And simply by with having this starting point of a personal selection of material attributes, you can kind of explore the possibilities and limitations of this, hence finding something that's only yours and radically yours, that nobody else is doing, and being recognizable simply right from the start. Of course, you can still be a normal oil painter or wood sculptor. However, try to make sure that your artworks here are not too stock, and especially that your technique and this kind of more traditional medium is also very personal. Which brings us to the next reason why your art might or might not be bad. Having no consistency or especially no coherence when it comes to your overall oeuvre is one of the main reasons why artists fail in the art world. This has nothing to do with trying to pigeonhole you into one specific style and repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again, because it will bore you out, it will bore the audience out. It's simply about having an oeuvre that makes sense, that when following an artist or being interested in an artist, that you kind of see what they're doing, trying to connect the dots here. If you are hopping from one project or one style to another, it doesn't really make sense. And there is also not enough focus on a specific development to increase the depth of quality. So what do you stand for? It's the same with visiting an exhibition. If you would visit a show with all artworks from other artists who have nothing related to one another, you're not really sure what you have seen. Whereas if you visit a show, for instance, a solo show, or even the show of a specific topic or a specific series of an artist, then all the artworks start to kind of support each other, and it becomes this greater entity that makes it interesting, and that the visitor will be able to understand what they are seeing, and it will leave a lasting impression. So it has nothing to do with pigeonholing you or to commercialize your art. On the contrary, in our video with 6 strategies to have consistency in your art and recognizability while remaining versatile and free, we explain how it is important to find this balance, and also have 6 proven strategies how you can achieve this consistency with your practice without losing any freedom to experiment. I will cue this video at the end of this video in the autoplay, so make sure to watch the video until the end and click through to watch that video next. To conclude, the fourth reason is your subject matter. Most often that is too vague. Many artists who haven't built this frame of reference will notice that their subject matter is too vague, too broad, too predictable and too cliché. We talk about emotions, balancing abstraction and figuration, talking about love, expressing feelings. However, all these things are actually saying something while saying nothing, and the seasoned curator will roll their eyes and they won't be interested at all. Besides being too vague or too cliché, is also kind of being too linear with your art. As soon as an artwork or the story of an artist, the backstory of an artist is too linear, it kind of becomes this sales pitch that's being repeated, and this is the interpretation of the artwork, this is what I'm doing, this is how you should look at it. And then there is no real dialogue here. There's nothing interesting or interesting to see in it, because it's all very linear and defined. Instead, how to fix this is first to write about your art, certain topics that you're interested in, and kind of have this, these writings develop over time, because this is perfectly fine, of course. Try to create art with not just one backstory or a linear story about it, but with multiple layers. And it's not always necessary to explain all these different layers or to tell them or for the viewer to be aware of them. Try to create art with multiple layers, and that also evokes multiple analogies, and simply let the art live. Let it show interpretations that you haven't been aware of, but you have kind of intentionally evoked by creating these different analogies, by having this ambiguity, this conflict in the painting, this conflict in the subject matter. By doing so, your artworks will become conversation pieces, and your artist statement and artist bio won't be too linear, too predictable, but it will be specific. You'll stand for something, and it will also get galleries, collectors and curators excited. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Feel free to watch our video on consistency and art style explained next. Support us on Patreon, and please consider subscribing to stay posted for more contemporary art. Bye.